I have been saying for a very long time that unless we leave the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, and its associated court in Strasbourg, unless we do that, we will not solve the migrant crisis.
It's just complete bollocks. The so-called migrant crisis Farage keeps raving about is a direct consequence of the Brexit he championed. A new study by Durham University has found the primary factor in the skyrocketing number of small boat crossings in the English Channel is actually Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. According to the report, it was the government's decision to leave the EU without a returns agreement in place which has led to the huge increase in the number of dangerous crossings. Here are some of the report's key findings. The primary factor behind small boat crossings is the UK's lacking a returns agreement with the EU. The government never assessed the impact of the consequences for leaving the EU without a returns agreement to replace the Dublin regulation and was caught by surprise. The UK did not need to leave this agreement in leaving the EU. Non-EU members have returns agreements with the EU. The lack of a returns agreement fueled an increase in crossings. A key factor is the withdrawal from a returns policy with the EU in 2020. Since 2016, the government has been warned repeatedly about the consequences of leaving the EU without a returns policy in place, including that it would fuel a large increase in irregular migration. It was asked several times to offer an assessment of the consequences, but it declined. The failure to acknowledge its past policy failure has impacted on its ability to fix it. After repeatedly denying the need to make any assessment of its oven-ready deal, the government appears unable to acknowledge that its failure to agree a returns agreement in this deal would have the consequences it has. This is because to address this failing is to recognise its earlier error, which may have political costs. The Home Office has no records of any individuals crossing the Channel in small boats to claim asylum before 2018. Now, this doesn't mean none happened, but it does strongly suggest that any crossings were so few as to go unrecorded. Now take a look at this from the Durham University report. The number of individuals crossing in small boats has risen sharply from 299 in 2018 to over 45,000 in 2022. And remember, the report from Durham University concludes, failure to acknowledge its past policy failure has impacted on its ability to fix it. Suggesting the UK should join Russia and Belarus as the only European countries outside the Human Rights Convention is the only way to fix this problem is absolutely ludicrous. And remember this, the European Convention on Human Rights protects the right to a fair trial, freedom of assembly and expression, the right to participate in free elections, freedom of religion, freedom from discrimination, the right to privacy, freedom from torture and degrading treatment.
We do need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights.